Welcome to Zoom at 8. My name is Julianne Peterson, and I am your host tonight and every Tuesday night for Zoom at 8. We have been doing this for the last 4 years. Why? Well, because I wanted to create a community that would provide, something that you could find. Sponsors, attorneys, insurance brokers, cost segregation, sponsors, they're all here. So if you don't have a Rolodex of these types of people, Zoom at 8 is where you're going to find it. All right. I am a lender. Did you know that? I am with Old Capital Lending. We have been in business for 38 years. If you don't do business well, you're not going to last in this business. So we've been doing it again for a long time. People choose to do business because we have execution certainty. What does that mean? That means we're going to give you the right answer. When you get a quote, it's not going to change from, oh, by the way, it's 75 today and it's 60 tomorrow. That doesn't do you any good. So when you're thinking about trying to get a quote, let me look at your deal. I need a T12 and a rent roll, and we can give you first high level. Then if you get into the deal in your best and final or a LOI, an accepted LOI, we're going to give you really where that deal is transacting, okay? Because when you start to ask or get people to get into your deals with you and you say, hey, I'm going to return 7% on your 100,000. And when you go to close and that other broker or lender who said they were going to give you 75% right before close says, oh, I'm sorry, I can only get you 60. You have to go back to your investor and say, oh, sorry, I'm not returning as much as I told you. Your shares are not worth as much as I told you when you signed that subscription agreement, okay? So that's why you want to build a relationship with a lender that you know, like, and trust. We're bringing the largest amount of capital to the transaction, all right? Let's get on with the show. All right, so Jared Lutz is in the house, and I was introduced to him by a guy that I met on the Michael Blanc program. He is the founder, CEO of DCap Digital Assets. Jared is a blockchain and cryptocurrency expert. Starting his blockchain journey in 2017, Jared recognized the future and power behind blockchain technology. In 2021, Jared co-founded play to earn NFT game, Starship, and within 6 months, the company was trading at $100 million. With an intense focus on stable investments, cash flow growth, and securities compliance, Jared resigned from Starship to launch DCap. DCap Digital Assets is an SEC compliant real estate investment management software built on blockchain that ushers in and levels up antiquated technologies. Prior to DCap, Jared founded and operated a marketing and software development company that specializes in finance, health, and asset protection. Jared is a father, a husband, a golfer, a brewer, a humanitarian, and technologist. He lives in the beautiful area of San Diego. He's a neighbor of mine, and he is here tonight. So I'm very excited for Jared to talk to us for about 40 minutes, but Jared could go on for days because he's got so much knowledge and he knows so much about this that you guys are going to be overwhelmed with the information. So Jared, welcome to Zoom at 8.
Thank you for the intro. Yeah, no, it's like one of these one question I feel like I can go on 40 minutes. So I do have a deck to like keep me on pace, but I actually prefer like more question and answer. It's just not really, totally that format.
All right. Well,
Thank you
listen,
for having me.
I'm we are gonna give you 100% of our focus tonight. So if everybody would do me a favor, go up to the right-hand side where it says view on your computer, put speaker view, because Jared now is in the frame, or I am, and once Jared says hello, he will take up your whole screen and we're gonna give him all of our attention. Jared, say something. There you go.
Yeah, thank you. Again, thank you for having me, Julie. It was a great in-person event that we did and before, and that was also supposed to be like 40 minutes, and it went like 2 hours. So that was cool though, because people were able to ask questions, and my deck got away from me real quick. I'm gonna try to be pretty quick, pretty snappy about some of the stuff, so we can really get to the meat of it, which is how is all of this technological change that's happening going to impact you as a syndicator or limited partner passive investor, and how can you deal with that in the future? So I guess we'll go right into it and kind of roll through this deck. So I do see a radical shift on the horizon, as do a lot of people, and this is a big thing with blockchain and AI and the implications on the real estate investment community. It's not just the real estate investment community; it's really kind of the whole world. And it's going to be a bit of a process. I know that a lot of people have been seeing this come to the forefront. It's not as radical right now as people think, but it's definitely on the horizon. So I figured we would start with an intro into blockchain, and I'll try to keep this super easy. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard of like AWS or Azure or DigitalOcean. These are all centralized server um, databases. In what they or frameworks that what those do is you have all the information gathered in one server. You could also have a series of servers, but really it's controlled by one entity usually. And what blockchain is it's a distributed ledger of all these different servers. So imagine having a server in 10,000 different homes, and all the information is spread across all of those servers and confirmed and validated by all those servers. What this does is it really creates the framework for immutable transactions. So transaction isn't just financial, it's any data transaction or any submission of data into the ledger. What this creates is an environment where you one, a much more secure environment, but an environment where the information it is spread across these distributed frameworks or servers. It increases the transparency of it, but I guess I'm trying to figure out how to like say this. So if I have all of your information on one server, it's very easy for myself or someone in my organization or some bad actor to manipulate the data and to bring truth to that data by distributing the information across many different servers that don't know each other. Uh, there's a lot more consistency and truth behind validation behind that data itself. So that was a very different explanation of what blockchain is. I just tried to give it an example rather than rather than go through like more of a scientific approach for it. So and I kind of actually just described how blockchain works in the series. When I'm talking about multiple different distributed servers, what I'm talking about is a series of nodes. One of the examples I actually like to give with this is, as a GP, your job is to not solely your job, but you're going out and you're meeting LPs and you're raising capital and doing many other things. But when you are meeting with LPs and asking them to invest in your company, they're going to ask you all sorts of different questions, and you want to have some sort of trust mitigation for that, which is where blockchain comes in huge. But one of the examples I like is, imagine walking into an interview and you have 26 people that come in with you, and they don't know each other and you don't know them. And every time the interviewer asks you a question, all 26 of these people, they say, I can validate that information. I don't know this person and I don't know anyone else, but I can validate that what he said is true. That's going to go a lot further than you just answering, right? Because or let's say they ask for references and you give your mom and your friend or whoever, you know, your your old coworkers. These are all people that you know and trust. These are you would never use someone you don't know or don't trust or know that would give you a bad reference. You would never use them when being called upon for a reference. So what these nodes are like these 26 people that I was talking about, where they're basically your reference saying that everything I say, all of my answers, all of my data to your my answers to your questions, this is in fact true. And that's kind of how blockchain works. I hope you guys do a much deeper dive than this. It's just if I dive into this, we're never going to get through 40 minutes. So, or we're going to eat that up real quick.
So
Um,
let me ask a question. And everybody else, if you start to have questions, let's you can raise your hand. Okay. What I love about this is that it's validating people, right? All right. In the AI, where you are
validating
able to,
information.
you're validating information. When you're using AI, which is validating information out on the web, right? That information that is out on LinkedIn or it's out on Facebook, will it also validate that information? For instance, I own 300 doors. Will it validate that as truth? Or will that say, that's not true. That guy does not own that. That's untrue. Help me out
So
understand that.
yeah, this is great because it brings in Chat GPT, which you guys have probably all heard of. I
Exactly.
can't imagine anyone hasn't. Why Chat GPT sucks, and look, no, yeah, why it sucks is because it's just blanketly taking information off of Wikipedia, off of all of these third party servers and internet or wherever the scope is given within Chat GPT. Like for a language model, it's brilliant, it's amazing, it really is very, very impressive. But when it comes to truth and data, it's not. So where the data scientist that's on here, why his future is very bright, especially in this industry, is because it's all about truth and data. So the power like with ChatGPT, the 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 interesting thing is a lot of people are going to look at this company and think, wow, this technology is so amazing. It's crazy. But it's really not. A lot of people have that technology or they have access to that technology. We do. We as soon as AI opened up their API, we had been started playing with it and integrating it in all of our different software and platforms. But what makes so ChatGPT sold 49% of their company for $10 billion, and this is this is a multi-trillion dollar technology. Why would they only sell for 10 billion? Because it doesn't, like, there's nothing really radically special about that language model that can just grasp all this information. What makes it truly powerful and what sets our AI apart from anyone else's that's using OpenAI or any other technology is the fine tuning, is the data science behind it, right? So we don't just blanketly take information. We have to go through and we have to. So all of our information, the way we're building our AI is to build off of the blockchain. So one of our core concepts is to protect the integrity of the blockchain to ensure that only true verified data can enter into the blockchain, because that's where the AI is drawing all of its power from. So or you know, all of its information and data sets from. So so in order to do that, like for instance, for a vendor that's a property manager, if they've got all these different reviews on Yelp, we can't take that. We can't trust that all of those are genuine, real reviews. So in order to, like, we can't just scrape the internet like Chat GPT does right now, or a bunch of other language models. So what we have to do is if a vendor is coming onto our platform and they want to bring on all these different reviews, those people who wrote those reviews have to come onto our platform and they have to attest to those. They have to sign a smart contract that says, which is just clicking a button, that says, this information is true. I wrote this review and I did work with this person. That way we know when the AI is capturing all the information on blockchain about all the vendors and the LPs and what deals they're in and property data, that we know that information is accurate and that information is true. Did I answer your question, or did I?
Very, very good. I mean, that's a big key here, because it also could be the information that, though, you are picking up, you're just validating as true, but it could be also, is it a what am I trying to say? All you're saying is yes or no, right?
Yeah, yeah. Also, I mean, look, there are ways to game the system, right? So like we're operating a permission blockchain. So this isn't a permissionless blockchain like Bitcoin or Ethereum. You have to have approval to come in here, right? So if you are an accredited investor, you've got to go through your KYC, you've got to go through all your accreditation and credentialing. We have to verify who you are, we have to verify your assets, what makes you accredited, and that is logged on chain to say to help GPs, like when they're bringing on LPs, they don't have to worry about the due diligence process anymore, because that they're already on chain and we handle that part for them. Of course, we have to verify on a scheduled basis. Like you don't just do one verification that just like lasts forever. But what it allows us is one way that you can game the system is, let's say I have a lawyer friend or a CPA friend, and I convinced them to write me a letter saying that I'm an accredited investor. According to the verification rules and regulations right now, I can accept that, right? I can accept that as truth, and I can allow that person into the system. If I find out later on that that accredited investor actually fraudulently, with that CPA, created that document that allowed them into the system, I now have a trace record, like an audit trail of who signed and attested to that information that allowed them into the system. So now I can list that LP as a bad actor, and then now I can list that CPA or that lawyer or whoever signed that document as a bad actor. And it allows me to go back and routinely like scrub and clean the network as we find bad actors.
Okay.
The whole point of like blockchain and AI and like everything that we're building is to create an environment where you don't have to think about the rules and regulations, that those are grouped together into smart contracts, and that the system keeps you consistent and it's reliable, and it allows you to focus on the work that you need to do, not the due diligence process, which is just kind of like this mundane part of, but really crucial, right? Like that could kill your entire deal. That could set you up with various different lawsuits if you fall outside of compliance.
Do you want to talk about what the difference of smart contract versus someone just signing a piece of paper and how that is different and makes it more or less secure?
So a smart contract is good. It's programmatic. One, that it's code. So you know all the terms of deals. Like let's say we were signing a promissory note and it had to be within 9 months, otherwise it's listed as a security. And so we code the smart contract, which is essentially the same thing as like a paper, but it's putting into code where it can execute certain things and it to ensure compliance, whereas obviously paper can't do that. So let's do a use case here. So we do programmatic distributions, and so what this is it's a smart contract that says, as I'm getting distributions from all of my investments, once it hits the smart contract, which in this case is going to be an escrow account of sorts, once it hits this, it's going to programmatically, depending on how the code is put out, programmatically distribute however I want, right? So it could say 10% is going to get sent to JP Morgan, 10% is going to, or 25% is going to get sent to my IRA, whatever it is, like all these different accounts, wherever you want to divest or take your earnings, it can programmatically execute contracts, and that would be a contract. Or in the case of here's an interesting one, where GPs are signing deals, in, let's say it doesn't come, they're doing where they get the letter of intent, or they do this the soft commitment, right? So This is where they're not actually capturing the funds yet, and they have to deal with the process of like then capturing those funds once the property is lined up and ready to close. You can send the money into a smart contract, which would be an escrow contract that has certain rules. So with a soft commitment, I'm going to go ahead and say, if you soft commit to this right now, you send your money to the smart contract, you can withdraw that money anytime you want, but at a 10% penalty. Like a lot of GPs do that. And so you can commit, you can get into the deal right now, but if something happens between now and 6 months or whenever the deal is ready to get funded, you can withdraw at a 10% penalty. If not, once the deal is ready to go, we send a message out to the network or out to all the people and saying, hey, the deal is ready to go. We're going to call the smart contract to receive the funds. So that gives you like a 24-hour, 48-hour notice that that your soft commitment is about to go into effect, and they're going to take the money. That once that window closes, the 24-hour, whatever you set it to, now the GP has access to that money, or it's programmatically sent to them.
It sounds like you kind of take away some of the human error, and the things that can be automated become automated, and it lets the humans focus on the human required elements of the deals.
Yeah, the way you phrase that makes me feel like I need a human to translate myself, because that was like a lot more simple than how I put it. But yeah, no, that's it absolutely takes out human error, and it keeps people in check, right? So like if you guys are signing a smart contract, you don't have to go to a lawyer to fight whether or not like you have to pay this person. Like you agreed beforehand that the money would be there, and once it's there, the smart contract handles the logistics after that. So smart contracts are absolutely the future of the legal system, and will radically we'll keep track of like all case laws in precedent, so you don't have to go dig in some random courthouse in Montana to find some precedent that could apply in the state of New York. That will all be on chain and readily accessible. But will radically reduce the amount of mediation that might have to occur when you're trying to figure out like the intent behind the contract. I guess still with intent, you might end up in court, but there's some really cool use cases like what's on here. I'm not going to go over cryptocurrency, except the because we kind of all at least know what it is. But with the cryptocurrency, that what I did want to highlight is that cryptocurrency and blockchain are not the same thing, and that cryptocurrency is an application on blockchain. And because a lot of people think that cryptocurrency and blockchain are the same thing. And I love to quote Larry Fink. He's probably one of my favorite to quote on this, because he is the CEO of BlackRock, and from BlackRock, JP Morgan, Visa, MasterCard, all the largest companies. I think it's like Deloitte did a survey where it's like 76% of companies over 100 mil see a future in blockchain, or are actively investing in blockchain. But with BlackRock, and again, this is the largest asset manager in the world. He manages over $10 trillion in assets. He believes is quoted as saying that the future of the markets is tokenization. And that was I paraphrase that. That's not a direct quote, but that's what he's saying.
So can you kind of unpack what tokenization is? What does that exactly mean?
So I'm going to do that. I think that's like the next slide. I want to just give okay, so supply chain management is a really cool one. This is where I'm going to introduce NFTs just very briefly. An NFT is a non-fungible token, which means that there's only one in existence, versus a fungible token, which means that there are a multitude in existence, or just 2+. And supply chain management is probably one of my favorite ones, because this is actually tracking individual items. So one of my favorite ways to describe this is, you go to the store, you see an apple, the apple has a sticker on it. You can scan that sticker. If that sticker itself would be an NFT that represents that apple. You could scan that on your phone, and you could look at a ledger of the entire distribution. all the way to the tree that it was picked from. So you could see when it was picked, you could see when it was boxed, as long as the farmer or the distributors are scanning it through like each part that it's going through, from like being picked to distributed to in the store, you would be able to tell the freshness of it. Where it really comes in is like, let's say there's an E. coli breakout, or like, you know, something like that. It would go a long way into tracking who handled the produce that got infected, you know, and where possibly did this occur from. Voting is huge. That would have been huge in our last presidential election. This really brings to forward, you know, where you can't have duplications, right? So like we've seen in voter fraud that you have multiple people voting. That couldn't happen on blockchain. Also, let's say like that death certificates are issued. Each death certificate would be an NFT, and if a death certificate is issued, that person can't vote on chain. So it brings a lot more transparency and legitimacy to voting. And we already kind of went through smart contracts. So let's continue forward. Yeah, asset tokenization. So asset tokenization really semantically is no different than what you're doing right now. So you are buying an apartment complex or building or whatever it is, and you're starting a fund. And in that fund, which is typically going to be structured as an LLC, everybody is issued membership units. If everybody deposits $1 million and there's 100 of you, that fund is worth $100 million. Everybody has 1% if it's like equal, right? So that's a fractional asset, like a fractional representation of an asset. The difference between how it's done right now with membership units and with asset tokenization is that the ownership rights and really like your ownership certificate is now digitized on blockchain, so it's immutable, right? So I, for instance, I could go, let's say in the secondary market, I could go to an investor that might want to buy my membership units, and I can say, here's my piece of paper, like here's my ownership and my membership units, here's all the contracts that you have to sign, and once you sign them, now you have it. There is no validity to that transaction right there. What it would require the person to do is it would require the LP to then go to the GP, who in secondary would have to sign off on the transaction anyway, but go to the GP and say, hey, do you know this person? Does this person actually like have ownership units in your LLC? And verify that information before processing the transaction. Otherwise, you know, if you were to give money to that person and then receive the you know, the paper document, it could be completely fraudulent. So with it being on blockchain, it eliminates that level of fraud. So tokenization, the last line is tokenization enables fractional ownership, liquidity, and transparency for assets that were previously illiquid or inaccessible to small investors.
So I do have a question on that. What happens if somebody does want to sell their shares? Can they do that? Now it's really difficult in a standard transaction of a syndication. Because you own that as on, you know, asset tokenization, could you do that a little bit more easily? Because it's all kind of filed and it's all open and registered and everything?
Certainly the transaction is faster, but as far as like ease of doing it, it's actually quite the same right now.
Okay.
It's just the secondary market is pretty much non-existent, and because you can go to a secondary market that that is not on blockchain but is still digital, and you still can transact that way, and it's fairly quick. But the misrepresentation with tokenization, and usually it's cited as like the number one reason why you want to tokenize is to bring liquidity, and why that's inaccurate or is because just because you tokenize something doesn't mean that it's liquid. Right now, our biggest problem is with the way that GPs operate their LLCs in these siloed environments, right? So GPs don't necessarily want to share their investor list or their investor data, and they want to protect that as much as possible. So they continue to operate in these environments where you can't see each other's information, right? And that's where liquidity comes from. So the reason why the stock market is so strong is because you've got like all the players there, and they can see all the deals, and they can go in and out on anything that they want. And in order for us to achieve liquidity where you're trading fast and you have a robust secondary market, it requires all the players, all the funds, and all the LPs to get together in the same place and really open up their data. Now we are working out ways to allow that level of liquidity while protecting the GP's data, but it's a lot more tricky.
This is the hot thing. Now, some people are saying, I'm not opening up my investor network, any of my information. What has been the feedback on that? Is it, do they want to? Have you gotten like, hey, no, there's not enough positive to getting to this,
So
to open it up? Curious.
This is kind of actually one of the things that I want to talk about, and I do realize that when I say stuff like this, I am quite literally possibly offending everybody on the call. So what I see with blockchain in largely my job is I look at it from a viewpoint of data, right? So where's data going, and how is data empowering decision making, right? Right now, LPs don't really have a choice. Like they have to wait for people to open up these funds, and they have to get contacted depending on if it's a 506C or 506B or a Reg A. And so LPs are in a position where like they have to be approached essentially. Or they can go out of their way and try to find 506C deals online. What blockchain is going to radically change is that especially if it's a 506C, you have access to all the data now if it's on blockchain. And so they don't have to like scour the internet. Like they can just go straight to the blockchain to find what's out there. Why this is hugely impactful for GPs is because it starts swaying the power over to LPs. Not only can LPs see all the GPs deals, LPs will be able to see how well those GPs do on all their previous deals, and LPs will be able to see each other. So it's going to create an environment where LPs can now create their own funds very easily and start interviewing GPs and say, hey, all of our LPs we all grouped together and we got 10 million and we're looking for a GP team, so it might be 1, 2, 3 GPs, but I definitely see a big compression on GPs. I don't think we're necessarily going to see 5, 6 GPs on a deal, especially since a lot of GPs are their core component is capital raising, which I can't totally say because that would put them not in compliance with the SEC. But yeah, I think I'm kind of straying from your question a little bit, but
I love it. And I'm curious, Colby, what do you think about that? Because this is you're working with LPs trying to get a fund going. How would this affect your business?
It would, I like it because if they already come in, they're already pre-qualified. So then I know whether I can advertise to them or not based off of, if I'm set up a 506B, 506C, and already have that. Yeah, I mean, I like it. I'm blown away because I don't understand half the stuff you're saying. Terminology.
I'm sorry, dude.
It's all right. But I mean, what's great is my partner is an IT guy. So, and he's all about this, but wasn't able to join us tonight. I'm blown away. I'm really excited where this can go. And like I said, it goes back to the transparency, especially the escrow piece. Because the hardest thing is like, you got to go around and chase your investors to go, hey, in that wire, did you do this? if you can automate things, it just, I can focus, like you said, I think Chris said it best. I can focus on the human things and let the automations do all the automation piece of it.
Yeah, what's really cool about and I'm really gonna just like throw you guys so deep into the weeds right now, but what's really cool is like we've been working on the smart contract, which is an ERC 1155, which is an NFT that can house multiple fungible tokens. So you guys aren't gonna understand that, but what this allows us to do within one structure, one ledger structure, is it allows us to create multiple different share classes. So when you're doing soft commitments, you can say, okay, if you soft commitment but don't pay in, this is your share class and this is what you're rewarded, right? This is like what your distribution waterfall is going to be, or your pref or whatever. If you put in and then and you fully commit to it, then this is going to be your share class or membership unit class. And this is going to be your pref, and this is going to be your waterfall structure. It allows you to completely automate and control the entire scope of the deal, which creates a world of incentives. So because now, I mean, dude, like people who want to get real crazy, especially with open-ended funds, they're able to create 20 different membership unit classes, depending on like how robust that fund is, that will incentivize investors to do different things. Where, like, you know, for people who are going to hold for a really long time, because again, in this example, it's an open-ended structure, investment fund, or let's say like a evergreen fund that has no close date, it allows you to say, hey, if you hold for 10 years, this is your membership unit, you get this pref, whatever it is. And so you can run a multitude of different types of share classes that will, and what this allows you to do is, like, if you start seeing that X amount of the fund is going to hold for 10 years or whatever, and here are the penalties if they reduce early. Now you know your demand on liquidity, right? Like, let's say you have 25% of your fund is saying that they're only going to hold for a year or 2 or 3, whatever it is. Now you know as a GP how to operate. Like, you know that you have a liquidity crisis coming potentially, or you have liquidity pressure coming. And if that doesn't give you chills right now, that's crazy, because to me, that's everything as an operator. You know the landscape of the deal, and it allows you to operate much more effectively.
What I really liked about what you talked about is that you can put in your criteria as a limited partner into this type of software, and you can basically go shopping, as opposed to being a victim waiting for general partners who you don't know are good or bad, right?
So
And go
speaking of
ahead.
like good or bad GPs, I just have so much to say on this. What this really does is it calls out all the bad actors or bad GPs. This is most prevalent that you see in the last and if this is anybody, and look, the market was crazy, but like, I'm not calling you out specifically, but what we have seen when you look at the data in the last 5-10 years is you see GPs getting bailed out all over the place, who are operating you know, in a deficit, but they were still being able to return 20% IRRs because the market was appreciating so fast that it bailed them out. And so as an LP, you don't know that, right? So like, you're getting pitched from this GP and they're saying, I've like consistently delivered 20-25% IRR over the past 5 years across like 3 or 4 different deals. That sounds great. Cool, man. Sign me up. I'm down. But really, if those GPs are still operating in this market right now, and those investors are losing.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, go ahead
So
and
yeah.
let's go ahead and get your question, Janedu.
Hey, Jared, yeah, a couple questions. One, I find this topic very fascinating as well, and it is a deep rabbit hole, so I'm going to try not to go down any rabbit holes in this, but I had 2 quick questions. So you had made a mention earlier about like smart contracts, and kind of agreeing with the way you're framing like the value add here, right, about the efficiencies that are gained. With this being disruptive technology, I was like broadly curious to think like within the multifamily space, like what are the different roles or job functions that you would imagine are like potentially most at risk or most threatened by this technology coming further into this space? Like my immediate thought was like escrow and escrow companies, like all that servicing type of work easily gets addressed or replaced with stuff like this.
Yeah.
And then the second question I was going to ask is around like potential biases. I think that's another big conversation within like the ML AI space, right? About The technology is only as good and as objective as the people who are coding it, creating it. So curious to hear about your thought within the multifamily space, like what potential biases might arise with the utility of this tech.
Great questions.
Yeah, great questions. And I need to make sure that let me know if I don't answer them. But with the biases one, this is the integrity of consensus. Okay, so a consensus saying that we've got individual nodes or people who are arriving at a consensus to say that this is true, this is not bias. And what that requires is a system where you have this is the biggest problem with operating a permission blockchain is you can't have collusion, because once you have collusion you can get bias. And so the idea is that the people who are contributing to the consensus, who are saying that this information is true, that they don't have a working relationship with each other, except for the nodes, right? And so that when they're voting on what the consensus should be, that those are individual thought patterns. That is a big vulnerability. And also something that you can see, right? Because you can see how nodes vote on stuff. And you'd be able, in our system, at least in a permission blockchain, you would see the identities of those people. So you at least can see that collusion is existing. As far as the if it does, as far as the jobs that are being threatened, a lot. Anything transactional based is threatened. So escrow is threatened. Agents are really going to be the only purpose for an agent, or for a GP too. Like largely, I think the biggest component for GPs are the GPs that are going to be the most successful are going to be the ones that can source deals that are not on market. Because if LPs can group together on their own, they can find deals together on their own. And if an LP group, let's say, raises 10 million, and they can find the property that they want, and all the property data is on chain, so they can create their own consent. The AI is going to tell them, hey, this is according to like all of your investment profiles, this is the best property for you guys, based on your investment risk profile, whatever it is. This is collectively the consensus is this is the building that you guys should purchase. So now you're going to a GP and you're saying, hey, we're all passive investors, we don't want to actively like manage this thing. Well, GPs are getting right now 40, 50, 30% of the deal. If I'm coming to you as a LP, as a group of LPs, and we have all of our money raised and we know what building we're going to purchase, and the AI is also telling us who's going to be the property manager, what are you doing at that point? You're really just making sure all the wheels are running, right? So like now I'm coming to GPs and I'm saying, you're not getting 30%. You didn't find the deal. You're getting 5%. And that's really scary. So the GPs, the most successful GPs are going to be the ones that find the off-chain deals, the unsuspecting deals, the deals that never hit the market because the buyer didn't want to, or the seller in this case, like never intended to sell until a GP came up to them and said, hey, like, I want to pump like 3 million into this and really like radically change it. Here's my cash offer for you, or whatever it is. Those are the GPs that are going to kill it, because they're finding deals that will significantly outpace any open market deal that's going to there's when you have open market deals that everyone has access to, you get fee compression, right? So like, because everybody's fighting for it, so it gets much more competitive.
Amazing.
There's so many other jobs too.
Jeff Hawk, you got a question?
Yeah, the question that I had, Jared, was you called out before that there's a distinction between blockchain and cryptocurrency, and that they're certainly not equal. Cryptocurrency runs on the blockchain. But when you're funding these real estate deals, what's the intersection of real cash being transferred to actually transact the deal? And in your experience, are people using cash, or they're using cryptocurrencies in these real estate applications?
So right now we run blockchain, and we're all just in beta, but like we're running blockchain parallel to our AWS servers. This is an Amazon server databases. So when you transact in cash, or our payment rails are all through Stripe and Dwolla and Plaid. So when you transact on there, it's mirrored on blockchain. We don't see a lot of deals actually being processed in cryptocurrency, right? Definitely not right now. For sure not right now, especially with Silvergate, the Send network going down, which was a huge intersection of fiat and crypto. But what so what we're doing is we're mirroring those transactions, and you can continue to mirror those transactions. I don't think that we're really going to start seeing a lot more cryptocurrency transactions, which to me semantically are the same as digital transactions, until we get a CBDC, which is a central bank digital currency. And this is basically like in the US has been testing it, and they're for sure going to launch it. How it gets launched, I think so. How it gets launched, I don't know. My guess is that it's purely going to be used for on-ramping and off-ramping. So this is where basically like Coinbase is going to pair up with the Department of Treasury or the Fed, and the Fed will mint CBDCs, and that's how you on-ramp. So the bank, the financial institutions will exchange your fiat for CBDCs, and you'll exchange that for USDC or some other stable coin that's approved in the US, because it's going to be highly regulated, and you're not going to get a bunch of people coming in and creating cryptocurrencies and these algorithmic stable coins. You're not going to be able to operate that in the United States. It's going to be incredibly regulated.
Do you guys remember when they said you're going to be able to put your calendar on your phone, and you were going to be able to call in an order to a restaurant, and you were going to be able to go pick it up? You might be thinking that this stuff is down the road and it's not going to happen. This stuff is coming. Jared is on the forefront of this, and it may sound futuristic, and you may not be picking up on some of the words and how it's all fitting together, just like the Palm Pilot or some of the other types of deal. Like we didn't have headphones, right? We didn't have we had a boombox, we had an iPad, we had an iPod. I mean, a lot of this stuff was way into the future. It's here. Man, oh man, we may be taking cars that lift up like don't even go on the roads. So you may think it's futuristic. You may think this is not coming. Everything is data driven. Everything. The Coke you drink at the store that you buy is all data driven. Don't be thinking this doesn't apply to you. It does. Let's go for one more. Candace, what's your question? Then we're going to wrap it up.
I have a question, and it's more of just like, I want to challenge you, Jared, on saying that the GPs are going to be of less, well, I don't know, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but when I hear you talk about the LPs coming together and bringing a quantity of money, a large quantity, and basically funding the entire deal, for a GP, that's like a dream. But the other thing about that is that just because you have money, it doesn't mean you know how to operate the deal. So it doesn't mean that that deal is going to perform. The GP's position is extremely important, because just because you bring the money in doesn't mean, and they have property management, somebody's got to make sure the property management is doing that job. So working together as a team, that's going to be a beautiful thing. I think all of this sounds like amazingly wonderful. But just because you have the money and you think that the property itself and this asset is going to perform, that's really false. And data is one thing, but you're working with humans to create the revenue to then provide to the investors. So the numbers can move around, but if you don't have somebody paying the rent, you don't have somebody managing the property management to get those funds in the bank, you don't have a success of a property. So where are you coming from in that, thinking that the GPs are going to have less power? Because we have more need to be on that property and managing it than I think what the LPs are thinking, because they've never done it for the most part. So can you touch on that a little bit? Did I misunderstand you on that?
No, you didn't misunderstand, and I appreciate the question and the challenge. And we don't look. This is just data that we're seeing, so we don't know. And this is quite a ways out too to put out. But I was compressing my answer when I was saying just those limited scope. So essentially, on the blockchain, and this is when the whole world adopts the blockchain. So again, that's what I'm saying. It's pretty ways out. We are going to have access to performance data across all vendors you use, and AI will absolutely be able to pinpoint based on LPs or based on the GPs that are selected and their management style, what vendors to use. And so the deal is largely, from every aspect of it, is going to be somewhat curated, at least to a point where it's very refined in the search. It's not just property management, it's asset management, portfolio management across the board. But GPs will always be necessary, always. What I'm more so saying is that for someone to be an operator as a GP, to make sure that everything is being processed and that the system is working, you're not going to need 6 GPs, and that's sort of what we're seeing right now. So I really meant to say that there's going to be GP compression, and for sure there's going to be compression, I think, on the fees that GPs can charge, because the system is going to make it so easy that that GPs themselves will say, I'll manage this deal for you, all the different aspects. Here's my for 5% less than that GP, and then that GP is going to say 5% less than that GP, and that's where you're going to get the fee compression.
And that's where you're going to get P4. That's where that's going to come.
And that's what you're going to get. What did you say, Candace?
That's where it comes. You get what you pay for. Eventually, it's going to balance itself out. It might come out like that, but once it comes around with the LPs thinking they have the upper hand, and you have the GPs, and it's going to weed out all the people that really shouldn't be in the multifamily, which is fabulous. And then it's going to make the cream of the crop, and then you're going to get what you pay for at a certain point. And then they're going to replay. It's all going to iron itself out. It's not
100%.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that. And to your point, like, that's what we want. We want that. It makes a better system, and it makes an easier system to operate in. My point more so was just really that you're going to see compression for sure.
So
I imagine that there's a sorry, I'm gonna jump in. I imagine there's kind of a middle ground between now and this theoretical ultimate future where the data controls all decisions. I think, like, when ChatGPT came out, people were like, ChatGPT is going to take over everything and disrupt and do all the jobs. And I think what we're finding out is that ChatGPT becomes a great tool for users to use to make their life better. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're like, oh, I'm going to write a book, ChatGPT, write me a book, and I can have it write me a book in about 20 minutes, right? Start to finish. But it takes the expert to then read the book and go, here's where it needs to be different and better. It's a great tool to shortcut my journey. And I imagine in the future, maybe the LPs have all the data and they are able to analyze that data. But I think there's a very long time between now and there where if you had 1,000 LPs, the reason LPs are mostly LPs now is because they don't want to work in real estate as a job. So they come to me and they go, I have money. I don't really want to be a full-time landlord. I want to be an investor. Chris, you're an expert. Do your job. Here's my money. I think that this AI tech and blockchain technology and all these things become a tool that syndicators use to make their life easier. But I don't know that the LPs taking that and being like, we now have full control is anytime soon. I think there's certainly if that were to happen, I think there's a big middle ground where
there is, and it'll be a long ways out. It'll be, it really will be where AI is actually operating as a personal assistant. Like, it's filing your taxes in a tax optimized way. It's making your investments, and there's all sorts of regulation that has to pass before then. I'm really just framing this as like a very futuristic conversation because this is where I see the data going. You also have to trust the AI is going to make those types of decisions that you want, and you have to have some limited control over that. So there's going to be a long time from now till then to see how it really happens. But it's definitely something that is possible.
So
It's something we
what's the
should
time frame
be
you were
prepared
talking
for.
about this, Jared?
So human level AI in one of the most recent reports that came out, we're looking at 20 to 25 years. I think you're for sure going to see it much faster than that. But to where it's commercial grade, where it can be radically deployed across multiple different industries. I think it's going to be a while, just from a regulatory standpoint, to allow AI to really start controlling our life. But in terms of being able to see all the data on chain, 5 years, to like the data where, as in that not all the data, but the data, the people that participate in that blockchain. So it depends on the market adoption. But when you have the largest asset managers, largest banks in the world moving on to blockchain, it's going to move much faster than we think.
All right, now listen, we could go on, and I love it, but
I didn't even get into the evolution of the web. We're gonna have to do that in a different
maybe
series.
we're gonna have to have you come back, because it is all very cool information, and I hate to cut you off.
It's quite all right.
But if somebody were wanting to continue this conversation offline without Zoom at 8, how would they reach you? How would they get a hold of you?
So I would say right now, go to, because I'm literally about to open it up. I mean, it's open. I would go to Verity. That's VERITY, block.ai. And that's our social platform that we're just about to launch, and that has our AI on it. She's very new and not very fine-tuned. It's not going to be anything different than Chat GPT. And so yeah, you can go and sign up on there and start a profile. That's where I'd probably go.
Okay, so it's Verity.
Yeah, I'll put it in the.
You put it in the chat. Okay, okay, awesome. Maybe we'll have to have you come on back on to continue this conversation. But thank you so much for all
course.
that you
Thank
have
you.
done for my audiences, both local here and on Zoom at 8. So appreciate that.